Mr. Nicolas Dittberner, thank you for the honor of joining us here
Sure.
at the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy and also for the very interesting keynote speech.
Thank you.
We would like to ask you a few questions in order to get your thoughts and opinions on some prominent issues. First of all, what does cultural diplomacy mean for you? And could you give us an example of cultural diplomacy that you have experienced in your work?
Well, cultural diplomacy for me, as being a manager of an international corporation, means that I should adapt. That I should adapt both to attitudes, but also to standards of communication, standards of behavior, and also standards of how people expect myself to react on someone in terms of if I travel, would I basically introduce myself first, or would I wait until the more senior person would basically introduce me to someone else? Those kind of things being part of a daily routine of someone who is working and traveling a lot for an international company.
I see. How important is cultural diplomacy in your work as country manager at Elance?
So in my case, since I'm responsible for Germany, Austria and Switzerland, the culture is pretty similar, but still within those three countries, as in the region for the German-speaking market, you will get to find differences in the culture. So for example, if I travel to Switzerland, which I will do later this day, I will definitely see differences in how people would basically act on a stage, or even basically in a discussion of people, how people would recognize me being a German moving to Switzerland and telling them about the labor market or any kind of other topics, since we have dependencies between the German and the Swiss labor market. So for example, there was a high impact by Germans moving into the Swiss region and country, and some of the population had the feeling that Germans who are moving into Switzerland are blocking off jobs from local Swiss. So you have those kind of tensions there, and I wouldn't speak for the whole population there, and also of course it depends on which area we are speaking of in Switzerland, but these are things you have to be aware of if you travel to a new country, and you have to be educated about that, and you should maintain your own opinion, and of course you should also be polite in this regard.
Okay. Then one of the topics discussed at the conference is creative economics. How does your company try to stay innovative?
For us, that's a very important task, since we are a platform, as in a marketplace that enables businesses and freelancers to connect with each other, and we are a technology provider, so we have to be open to new manners of usage, how people would adopt to technology use. So we have to provide everything as in tools that people would expect when working together online, when working together on a virtual level. So we have to be on top of things here. We have to provide either the tools ourselves, or be an open provider to other existing technologies, so that people can keep using them, but still are able to leverage our functionality on the marketplace.
In your opinion, can cultural diplomacy help with the economic growth of a country? If yes, how? If no, why not?
I would think that it's a very basic requirement to enable growth on an economic level. So I would even say that it's one of the first steps that you have to naturally make part of your own toolset and of your own capabilities. And I think that is something that could be looked much more into as a subject during your studies. So not many of us are well enough prepared if they enter the professional life. So quite a few of us have to do this on the job and on the go, and learn that as part of the job, rather than being prepared early enough. So I think especially in Europe, we do a lot of school exchange and travel during being a student, but multinationally or internationally, I think there's much more that we can do in terms of education of young professionals.
And related to the topic of your lecture, the nature of labor is changing, becoming more flexible. What role do you see for cultural diplomacy in the future of labor?
As said earlier, I think since this kind of diplomacy is, I would see it as a standard skill that you should adopt and that you should make part of your routine. I would say that we also, from an organizational or corporate standpoint, maybe should look into more educative approaches here, so that our stakeholders and employees are better people in terms of this kind of cultural diplomacy part when making business, so that there are no negative surprises when we get in touch with international clients or partners. So not only from the part of the education system, but also from part of the corporate organization or employer side. I would hope that organizations are moving a step further by integrating this topic more naturally as part of the organization.
You already partially answered the questions, but what are the biggest challenges you run into when bringing people together from different cultural backgrounds?
On our end, we have learned that internationally seen, there are multiple perspectives on a goal, and goals in an also kind of deadline perspective. So, for example, comparing China and Europe, for example, you will probably learn on a business relationship that there are different kind of meanings or expectations to a deadline and to basically reaching or completing a milestone. And that being said, I'm also relating to basically the communication part before this project starts, but then also if the milestone comes closer, we still have very different meanings and opinions on this kind of result, as in reaching a milestone and a deadline. So this is something that people who are part of this project need to be aware of and need to also discuss very openly, and ideally find a partner on the other side of the business relationship that understands the expectations from the other side. So I think it helps to basically build relationship with the business partner on a personal level, and to find an individual who has a similar kind of level of understanding, so that you get a mutual agreement, for example, in terms of milestones and deadlines.
Thank you for your time. It was an honor and privilege having you here. And
Thanks again for the invitation.
Thank you so much.